everyone. Thanks for coming out. I am Jeremy Smith, West Coast editor of Ain't It Cool News, also known as Mr. Beaks. Without further ado, this is a great honor for me. It's one of my favorite actors. I've been a fan since I saw him in Vincent Van Gogh back, when I was in high school, about over 20 years ago, or around 20 years ago. So, ladies and gentlemen, the star of Lie to Me, one of the best we've got, Tim Roth.
Hello? Hello. Hello. I feel like we should break into a song, you know. Nice duet, romantic melodies.
Well, I figured we'd just go person by person and see if we can, test out those lie detecting abilities. And
Don't do it. I have no idea when someone's telling a lie. I'll just get that done. See, I haven't got a clue. That's why they hired me.
Is that so?
Yeah, I do this. Yeah, it's true. I try not to learn any of it. I pick up as much as I know. I need to know on an episodic basis, but no. Some of it, I suppose. I'm looking at as my son in here, so yeah, I know when someone's not done their homework. I absolutely know that, without a doubt. Absolutely.
Well, I guess the first question, good place to start would be, had you ever been, prior to this, approached to do episodic television before? And what made you choose this show?
No, I hadn't. I've done I've never done something what you would know as a network show. I've only ever done what we would call in England a TV series, which would be 4 one-hour plays kind of cobbled together, stories that connect. But never something where you week in, week out have to come up with a drama and try and retain the audience's interest. It's a very, very different thing for me.
Yeah, and so when they came to you, I mean, were you kind of surprised? Were you at all taken aback that they would want you to headline a series on Fox? And when you read the script, I mean, was this something that really appealed to you, that you really liked?
No, I passed on it twice. But not because of the quality of the material. It was really because I didn't know if I was ready to do it. I didn't know if it was something that I particularly wanted to do. And then it kept coming back, which was odd. And I thought, well, take a very serious look at it, and with the looming recession in mind, I took a very serious look at it. And then I had to talk to them about what it actually meant to do something like this. And it's a huge amount of work. It's a very, very large commitment. And if it continues, it can go on for years. And then you have to look at the standard of the material as it continues and try and remain consistent. So it was a very, very big thing for me to think about. But in the end, I think I made the right decision, funny enough.
So the way you needed assurances that the quality of the writing was going to be, and the way your character would develop, I mean, this is much different from a film where have an idea of what you can do with that character, whereas with a show like this, you know where you're starting, but throughout a season or, maybe 5 seasons, how that character will develop, I mean, is not necessarily the same character he's going to be from that first season.
No, I think he's different from last season already, which I'm quite pleased about, to be honest. He's developing. We're opening up all kinds of background to making that available to me now, and so it gives me a much broader kind of spectrum of kind of facets of him to play. I treat it like a play, if you will. If I was doing a long run in the West End of London or on Broadway here, I would tweak it every night. Play around with different concepts and different ideas, even though you're within the same structure. And I think I kind of think of it a bit like that.
So then, how much input do you have in the writing of the show and the direction they're going with the show? I mean, do you go in story sessions? Do you help guide the story?
I do. I spend a lot of time with the writers, or as much as I can with the writers, and for example, I would go in and they'll pitch the stories to me. They'll tell me what's coming up, what they're thinking of doing episodes about, and bounce ideas off me and ask me what I think, how I think the character would react. in a certain set of circumstances, and so I became very, very involved in it. And now with we there's a whole new group of writers have come on since last year, and with Sean Ryan from The Shield.
Right.
So it's I find it a much more creative process than it was last year.
And I think that's something worth pointing out. I mean, the show started out, I mean, it was, created by Samuel Baum, and then midway through last year, was it midway through the season that Sean Ryan came on?
End. Sean came on to do, I think, just a couple of episodes with us. I think it was around episode 11 of 13. And he came in and he worked on The Shield and the Unit. And he's very, very, very good at this stuff. And he produced an episode, which I don't know if very sick and twisted episode, which caught my eye. I liked it, and so when he came back on, that's kind of where we took off.
Right, and that was Blinded?
Was Blinded? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I like that one.
I don't know if you guys, if you saw the Blinded episode with the with a serial rapist, and it was very dark and had a great narrative and even like a great B story. I mean, it was just a well put together episode.
Yeah, it was what we call the long con. So even people who are around me, who work around me, don't know what I'm up to, and you'll see a couple more of those things happening.
Well, yeah, and that's a great direction to take it. So, and I guess like going into this season, and with this crew, I mean, do you feel that this is? I mean, do you feel that this is in any way like a different show than you signed on for? And
No, I think in a way it's the show I signed on for. It's the one I wanted, and I've got it. Again, the first season was a way of trying to find out what that might be. So I think it's a very good beginning for us. I think I really aspects of the first season. I don't watch the show myself, but there's aspects of the first season that I really did enjoy. But I think that we've taken what was good about that and put it into this and lifted up the material, raised the bar a bit.
Well, I think that's the trick with a character like Dr. Lightman, who's kind of got this omniscient. He can't be beat. He can't be stumped.
Oh yeah, he can. You're going to see it.
Oh yeah, he will be stumped. This.
Oh yeah. That was the thing that Ekman, whose science is based on, was saying. Well, you constantly, you can be wrong. You can, He said the trouble with Lightman is he's never wrong. So immediately we started going down that road, and that's coming up.
Well, and that's Dr. Paul Luckman, who was a psychologist who pioneered this everything you see on the show, which is all grounded in real science. I mean, I think what the great appeal of the show is that people are actually trained in this. They can actually do this, and from what I can tell, I mean, of course, you're exaggerating or maybe embellishing for dramatic purposes, but generally everything is grounded in real life.
Yeah, I mean, the Ekman and his team come into the writers' room and work with the writers to, if you've got a situation, how best would you use the science in that situation and so on. And I know, for example, we're doing an episode right now, just finishing up in Vegas, and it's poker players, which is kind of fun. And then Ekman, was it not Ekman? Lightman has been banned from every casino in Vegas, for obvious reasons. We're doing that. Then with hostage situations, we've had, I shouldn't give the game away, but all kinds of different stuff. But the writers, the scientists are very involved with the writers and making sure we kind of stay in the right area,
Have you ever challenged Ekman to see if he can, suss out whether or not you're telling the truth, whether or not you're being, you're believable?
No, it's impossible. I mean, he's never, you can't. Once you do this stuff, you can't switch it off. It's impossible to switch it off once you know it. So I get quite nervous around him because I'm an actor, which means, of course, you're lying all the time. And it makes me quite nervous. I always sort of nip off and have a cup of tea when he's around, But he's a very calm and gentle and humorous man. But my God, it is quite worrying when you're around him.
Well, so has that affected the way you actually perform? Thinking about every gesture you make is something that is, I mean, it's when you're acting again, like you said, you're not necessarily telling the truth. So you're I mean,
yeah, but I'm in a very privileged position, which is that my guy, and this is Ekman gave me this advice, and it's good advice. He said, I don't care what my body's doing. So it doesn't matter what my body's doing. I'm not on stage. Whoever I'm looking at is on stage. So I just developed a very odd physical kind of performance, which I liked, and put the character in it, you know. But he's never being judged. He's judging everyone else, you know.
Right, unless he's going up against someone like in the Blinded episode, which is, again, why that's such a great episode. You have a character...
performance, yeah.
Yeah, and, and that seems to be like that's the trick. That's the, the kind of thing that you would like to see going forward, or people who can, or knock him off his center and get him thinking about how he's presenting himself, how he's...
Oh, yeah, trip him up. It's good stuff.
Exactly. We should... let's see what you guys got. Go out to the audience for some questions here. I can. I'll repeat the questions so we can. Sir, right here.
I'm supposedly an actor, nothing compared to what you've ever done.
I guess that's the question is, what's the difference between playing a character like Cunningham in Rob Roy and the character of Dr. Cal Lightman in Lie to Me?
I think it's more in the... I think television acting is really very, very different from film acting, completely different, and I quite enjoy it. I think it would be. I think it's a very difficult and possibly a bad thing for an actor to go straight from wherever they come, from the street or from drama school and into TV. I think you'd become incredibly. I don't think you'd learn much. But I think for a film, in film you'll learn more about character and building character and so on. Television is about behavior. It's a behavioral media. It's about convincing people that you're not acting at all. It's trying to convince the audience that they can be you, that you're having a conversation with them in their living room. There's no distance, and I find that there's more distance between the characters in real life with film. And so with this, I try very much for him to make him as naturalistic as possible, as crazy as he is, and as unnatural as the situations are that he's in. I try to make him accessible in your living room once a week, in a bonkers way. I don't know if that makes sense. With film, it's completely removed. I think as an audience member, when I watch film, I want it to be really removed. I want to be far away. I want it to be a magical place. And so when you're constructing a character, you can be much more fanciful, I think, when you're doing film, the kind of film that I like to do anyway. A physical performance, an unnatural performance, something that's not grounded in what we know, something from another planet in a way. And Rob Roy was exactly that. I thought I was going to get fired for the things that I was doing in Rob Roy. And I really did, quite seriously. When the studio saw it, I thought I was going to get my papers, but in fact they went the other way around. I liked it. It's completely over the top, and until the very end when the wig comes off and what's revealed is a very psychotic young man. It's a different approach, I think.
Was it because they thought the character wasn't physically intimidating enough to challenge?
No. I thought because they thought my performance was bloody awful. I thought because it was so grand. By the end of the first week on set, you couldn't get me out of the door without bowing at about 25 times. It was very camp and very silly and lots of fun until the sword fight.
Right. And then you were nominated for Best Supporting Actor for that role. So
yeah. So there you go. It shows I know nothing.
Right there.
Yeah. So I have two questions. What actors do you look for inspiration, or what actors influence you? And second, will you sign my copy?
All right.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that at the end. What's the? I'm sorry. The first question was.
What actors do you look for that inspire you?
Which actors do you look to that inspire you?
I look at Altman. I go to people like Spencer Tracy and Cary Grant, David Niven. Directors inspire me quite often more than actors. In today's films, I think Matt Damon's pretty extraordinary. I think that George Clooney is what most closely resembles a movie star of the 50s and 40s and so on. Early Pacino. Gary Oldman, Ray Winstone, people like that. Very varied. Meryl Streep, Vanessa Redgrave, Audrey Hepburn, Gregory Peck.
Yeah, well, and Ray Winstone, who was amazing in The War Zone.
Yeah, I got to direct him. I only directed one time. I got to direct him in The War Zone. It was pretty great to work with. So.
Yeah, and it's a terrific film. If you have never seen it,
Not children.
No. However, great drama. And it's been now 10 years since you directed for your first and thus far only time. Yeah. I'm wondering, have you considered trying to direct again and looking for things?
No, that's what I want to do, really. I did just the one film, but really I couldn't do it after that because I was broke. So you have to take, quite seriously, we weren't getting paid very much for films, and so you have to take 2 years pretty much to do a film, to direct it from working with the writers through and then making it and selling it, and then it's out there and whatever. But so I stopped. I in fact I thought about quitting acting at that point. I thought about just finishing with that and going straight through to directing. It was Ray Winstone that convinced me to come back to it. I've got 2 scripts. I've got one that Harold Pinter, an adaptation that he did for me of King Lear, and I have an adaptation of a book that was written by a social worker in New York, which is a companion piece to The War Zone, and he was somebody who removes children from dangerous situations. So he wrote his autobiography. So 2 projects.
So is Pinter's adaptation of King Lear, is that a classical version, or is that a updated? Is that different? What period is it set in?
It's set many centuries ago, but it has a slight twist to it. It's a wonderful piece.
And that before we go back out, and that brings up the fact. I mean, you have collaborated with I think pretty much very close to most of the great directors working today. I mean, the list is phenomenal, and that's, I think, speaks to the fact that people really want to work with you. If I could just go through the list, I mean, beginning with Alan Clark.
Not when they've worked with me. After that, they don't want to work with me again.
Somehow I doubt that. Beginning with Alan Clark, your first film, Made in Britain, amazing movie. Stephen Frears, Mike Leigh, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Altman, Tom Stoppard, Giuseppe Tornatore, Woody Allen, Peter Greenaway, Michael Haneke, Tim Burton, James Gray, Wim Wenders, Werner Herzog, Francis Ford Coppola. Pretty good list.
Yeah, they're all right. A lot of grumpy old men in there. No, very, very good group. Actually, I've never done that before. That's interesting.
Well, and so how does that work? I mean, is this do you typically get a call? Is it someone who's looking to work with you? Do you ever reach out to directors who you really would like to work with?
You get a reputation, and then you build on that, and you have a great group of people working with you on your agents and so on. But I did do one time. I did one time I wrote to a director. So when I was it's true. I very rarely do it, but I thought when I started acting, I thought I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll write to people who I really admire. Oh, Robert Duvall, by the way, that's another one. Gene Hackman. So I wrote. So I thought I'd write to a couple of directors, as you do. So I wrote to Kubrick. I wrote to Scorsese, and I wrote to Coppola. And years and years and years later, I was called in 20 years later, I was called in to meet with Francis Coppola on another film, On the Road, a Jack Kerouac adaptation. And he was interested in me playing William Burroughs, which I thought was a fantastic idea. So I met with him, and he said, I've got something. And he reaches into his bag, and he pulls out this letter that I'd written and this little photograph. And the photograph's about that big. And it's me sitting in my mum's living room with a camera when they had a cable and a plunger. I was like that. and I'm covered in acne and wearing prison pajamas. And I said, Dear Mr. Coppola, I really like your movies. If ever you need an English actor, I'm your man. And so and so, signed off. And he kept it. He read it and he kept it. And he offered me the job to work with him. that film fell through, and then he came back for a second shot at me on Youth Without Youth. But it worked. So my suggestion would be just do it. You know, you never know your luck, right?
Who's that?
Right there.
Do you enjoy theater work?
I used to do a lot of it. I came up through the theatre. I came up through the British Theatre, and I recently did a film, play with Sam Shepard up in New York, called a play of his, God of Hell. I have got terrible stage fright. I have chronic stage fright, and so when I got lucky and started being more and more in films, the last thing I did on stage in Britain was a Metamorphosis, Stephen Berkoff's Metamorphosis with the Kafka play, which is a very physical part where I played the bug, you know. And then I left it behind, and then 20 years later did this thing with Sam at the Actors Studio in front of 100 people a night, only for 3 weeks, and was terrified. I used to walk about a mile backstage, you know, up and down, and I don't know if I'll go back. Every now and again I think I will, you know, but it scares me. This stuff doesn't scare me in the slightest, but being on stage does, really does.
Right here.
What do you got? Did you like filming Hulk?
Yeah. Did you like filming Hulk?
I loved it. I did it for my boys, and I thought it was fascinating, all the process of making one of those things, you know, because we would do all the movement for the monsters and work with all these free runners and crazy stunt people from France, and we could do somersaults and Cirque du Soleil guys, and all, you know, got very physical, got very creative, and then you do the human version of the character as well. We were running around in Brazil and Toronto. It was a lot of fun. I've never seen so much money spent on a film. It's extraordinary. Never seen that. It's huge, but it's a good thriller. I think it's a pretty good film. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I probably enjoyed it most out of all of them, to be honest.
So you get to do like performance capture as Abomination, you know, jumping around, fighting, doing all of that. I mean, that's
you get to run around and go grr, you know, and smash stuff. It's pretty great.
Throw the Hulk through buildings. That's kind of why a lot of people get into acting, I think. Yeah. How are we do? Right back there.
Tim, do you have any moments that were improvised that are cute stories, either that you've done or where you've seen other great actors improvise in all of your work?
Question is, do you have any moments that you've improvised or have improvised a moment on film that or actors, other great actors that you admire who have improvised moments, I guess?
Well, I worked with Mike Leigh, which was, I don't know if that really counts, but that's an improvised film. But it's an incredibly structured process. I do it in the series now. I'm allowed. Because they can't stop me, really. But sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think... I'm trying to think of a specific incident. I think I did a film called Little Odessa, which is directed by James Gray. And Vanessa Redgrave played my mum. And we did a scene where I go to visit, she's dying, I go to visit her, and we had a couple of lines to do in the room, and we just carried on. And I think it was probably that, I mean, the way it developed, just her demeanour and the way she was, and the love that you felt immediately that came from her for her son, who was the devil, you know, was in a way something that was completely improvised. And was unexpected, and I think I count that as probably one of the best moments I've ever had as an actor. So that would be one.
Well,
and also in directing Ray Winstone, where the script was purely a blueprint, but that was a decision that I made. So they felt very free to improvise and in rehearsal, but not on film. So.
And that's amazing to think, because that was James Gray's first film as a director, and he's directing you and Vanessa Redgrave in a scene together. Was there a sense that he just was going to let you go? Did you feel like you had that freedom, or did you guys kind of take it and run with it?
No, James knew what he was doing. James was very clear about how he wanted to proceed. I remember when I first met him, he said, I was saying, who have you got cast? Who have you thinking? Well, he said, I don't know, really. We're just started. And they grabbed me for it. And then I said, who's your ideal cast? And it was Vanessa. I said, have you asked her? He said, no. And so I said, call her up, you never know. And she happened to be in New York visiting her daughter at the time, and said, sure, I'll do that. It's 25 grand, he got her, you know. Got her time, and she was wonderful, wonderful. So you never know, you never know.
Yeah. Right here?
Tarantino, isn't he weirder than a $3 bill?
Isn't he what?
Isn't he weirder than a $3 bill?
Is, in fact, Quentin Tarantino weirder than a $3 bill?
Quentin's always been weird. He's fantastic. I mean, what do you want, boring? You know, he's, it's like working with him is like hitting the ground running, you know. It's like at a very high speed. It's like getting out, opening the side door of a car doing 90, you know. And yeah, he's a very strange man. But, you know, it takes a stranger to make films, you know.
If you're on his good side, that's good. But if you're on his bad side, you're in trouble.
Well, I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's life. But how, you know, it's amazing. You know, once a week here in Los Angeles at the New Beverly Cinema, you know, they do a midnight screening of Reservoir Dogs every night. So you're up there bleeding out every night for the delight of theatergoers. I mean, that film has endured. It's obviously it's just one of the most iconic movies of the last 25 years. When you look back at that, I mean, did you guys, when you were filming that, did you have any idea that what you were doing was going to last and was going to impact the culture like this?
Yeah, funnily enough, I think we did. I think we all thought the Quentin was extraordinary and as the man says, a very odd but fascinating man who had a vision, you know, who had some kind of vision, cinematic vision, and the script was superb. I mean, it was hilarious and dark and like just the right mixture. And I remember walking across we shot it in a morgue, appropriately enough, which has now been demolished. And out the back was where the trailers and the makeup things were. And I remember walking out with Harvey Keitel. We're both of us covered in blood. And he's saying, "What do you think? What do you think?" I said, "I don't know. I think this is rather good." He said, "Yeah, so do I. You know, don't tell anyone." And a lot of that went on behind each other's backs. I think this is really rather good because you don't want to jinx it, you know. And sure enough, it was. You know, it was. We shot it in 5 weeks. You know, about 5.5 weeks, something like
that. Right over here.
A question about Reservoir Dogs. Like, was there a lot of levity behind the scenes? I mean, you're doing these intense scenes where you're dying. I mean, you know, behind the scenes, were you guys all kind of serious? Were you laughing around?
Even though you were dying, you know, on the film, was there a lot of levity as you were shooting Reservoir Dogs?
I think it depended on the actor, really. Harvey was quite serious and was very drawn to me because it was a father-son relationship in a way. Quentin was just busy. Steve and I got on very, very well. Steve Buscemi. I mean, there was a lot of humour there, and with Madsen too. The three of us were kind of, and Chris Penn. So, yeah, I suppose there was, but we were so tired by the end of it. I think the work was very, very tough, very, very grueling. But we became obsessed, and then we went on the road together, selling it. You know, going to all these festivals and stuff, and that was when that was fun. That was fun.
Did you have any encounters with Lawrence Tierney?
Oh yeah, Lawrence Tierney. Yeah, he's a nutter, or was. He hated me. Really, really hated me, and then really loved me, and I couldn't work it out. And kids are gone? No, I bet. So anyway, I mean, full on language, you know, no holds barred. Definitely both passions. But a fantastic man. He told me a story. He's an old school 50s actor. Came up with Robert Mitchum, for those of you who don't know who he is. And he was California. And he loved it here. But he got into all kinds of trouble. So that I think at one point, now I don't know if this is true, the police got him and took him to the state line and literally kicked him across it. And he was banished from California, therefore from Hollywood. So he went up to New York and caused all kinds of trouble out there, making films. He was a remarkable man, an amazing man. But boy, was he hard work.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to just Google Lawrence Tierney, and you will find some amazing
Dillinger.
anecdotes.
He played Dillinger. He's the Dillinger.
Yeah, he was, as far as I know, he was one of the first Dillingers, if not the first Dillinger. Any other questions right here?
So you mentioned that you work with Tim Burton, correct? How did it feel like to work with them, even though he has sort of created darker movies in a way, like Secret Abraham, Alice in Wonderland? How did it feel to work with someone like him?
I guess just how was it like to work with Tim Burton? Yeah.
I think he's somewhat they're not the same kind of people, but they have a crazy imaginations. The kind of imagination that I like in the sort of books that I used to read as a child, these wild, like Roald Dahl and these wild adventures and fantasies and so on. He's similar in a sense to Terry Gilliam, who comes from the Monty Python thing and has that absurdist and bizarre and surreal fairy tale kind of imagination and creativity. I found he laughed a lot. And we used to, again, you talk about improvising, we were actually at some points improvising in Planet of the Apes. But I don't know if it was the Planet of the Apes that he wanted to make in the end. I think the one that he would have made and I would have made would have been a much more twisted and dark world, and there was a kind of leash on him on that one. I think he was glad when that was done. But I had a wonderful time with him. He laughed a lot. He always did. He still does.
I'm wondering on Lie to Me if you are if you're thinking about or trying to bring on any colleagues, any particular actors you would like to just do an episode with, who friends.
Yeah, we did. We wrote one for Ray Winstone, but we couldn't get him out at the right time in the end. So, but hopefully we'll do that down the line. I'd like to do that if we can encourage. I mean, if we can find them when they're not working and bring them in, it would be fun. But it's a different. Again, when you approach television, my friend over here told me this. You have to don't try and make it what it's not. It's pure television. So a lot of the film actors find it very shallow when you see it on the page. And in fact, you can bring a lot of layers and a lot of complication to it. But you have to take a leap of faith with it, I think. So getting film actors into television, although nowadays it's pretty easy, fairly easy. But getting them to come in and do a guest spot on a TV show, I think is kind of tricky.
Do you think is it the nature of the kind of show that it's more self-contained, whereas if it was a show where there was a promise of maybe a few episodes, like a multi-episode arc?
No, I think the standalone thing is probably better in a way. You just come in for a few days and have some fun. Hopefully we'll be able to encourage them in. But I'm not quite sure. Is there snobbery here? Is there still snobbery here between television and film? There may still be. I think the barriers are coming down.
Well, it seems that they are, because just the quality of TV over the last few years. I mean, shows like The Wire and Mad Men and Breaking Bad.
Very good stuff. Very, very good stuff out there. And I think American television is now getting to the point where British television used to be, getting to the level of quality that we used to have. And now, because we started trying to copy the Americans, our stuff is sliding off.
Well, but sometimes I think we would do well to copy the British way of doing things. They don't do as many episodes, and sometimes those shows are just much richer. I mean, if you look at the original run of The Office or Spaced or shows like that they really...
Yeah, and we don't have as much censorship as you guys have out here, so we can really play around. You have a fairly free run on cable, but your mainstream media is heavily censored. So there's a lot of stuff we can't do, which we would really like to do. Maybe that'll change. Hope so.
How are we doing? Anyone had right here again?
You've got to go study compared to someone like this guy might not be somebody you could actually study.
Well, this guy... Oh, you want to...
Well, yeah. Have you ever been able to study a real person for a role?
You mean who's alive?
And who is alive?
Oh.
Based on someone.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah. breaking.
Like Pacino did Scarface, but he had the guy.
Yeah, but Scarface was dead, you know. Oh, the guy, the original drug runner? Nice fella. I'm not sure. No, not really. I've played people who are since dead, but no. I don't think so.
When you did Vincent...
And this guy is just the science. The guy is very different from... If this person existed in real life, he'd probably be locked. Probably.
Yeah, sociopath or something like that. Yeah, if you have that kind of power. When you did Vincent and Teo, did you... how? Of course, there was the Lust for Life, which had already been made, but did you look to that film? I mean, how did you build that character, Vincent Van Gogh, kind of an unknowable madness?
Well, I'd seen Zeffirelli was it Minnelli?
Vincent Minnelli.
Vincent Minnelli's film, Zeffirelli, big difference.
With Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, I'd seen that when I was a kid, and I was tempted to go back and look at it, but I thought best not, you know. Basically, what I did was I read the letters. I read all of them, but there's 3 very, very big volumes that you can get, and I did that. I've been through art school. My mother and my father were both painters and drawers, and so it was an appropriate thing that it came to me on that level, so I could handle a brush. And then I suppose I based it on my dad. Really, it was my father's hero, and one of them, and I used a lot of the crazy aspects of my father in that character, and took what I could from the letters and the paintings, and then forgot about it all. I mean, Altman's thing was, this is one of those things you can research and research and research, and everyone's going to have a different opinion about it. So just to make up your own stuff, you know. And so we did.
And
that was a lot of that was improvised as well, by the way.
And that's the thing with Altman was that, I mean, he would allow for that kind of improvisation. I mean, this was not one of his multi-character films, but they're...
Well, the way that I worked with him was that he would, I would rewrite the scenes. I would do a lot of writing, and then work with Paul Rees, who was playing my brother, and when the other actors would come in, we'd get together before the scenes were going to be shot the night before or a couple of nights before, and we'd write them, rework the script, rework it completely, and then come in and shoot them. So it was he gave a lot of power to the actors, Altman, or seemed to, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right over here. Yeah, sure.
What was it like building your character for your film 4 Rooms, and what was it like working with 4 different directors?
What was it like building your character for 4 Rooms, and what was it like working with 4 directors?
I think 4 Rooms is a stoner movie. I do. I think a lot of people who ask me about it, it's I didn't know what I was going to do, and then the first shot that we did when we came to filming, I think it was Quentin was directing at that point. No, it wasn't. It was I can't remember. Alison Anders was directing, and I was in a hotel lobby, and a ghost was supposed to appear, or a witch was supposed to appear. So she appears, and it's Madonna in a rubber dress, which is it's going to scare you. And I did this thing. I remember when I went to see Jaws when I was a kid and I saw it in the cinema. I remember when there's a bit where there's a hole in the bottom of the boat. They've gone down in the water. Richard Dreyfuss has gone down in the water and he's coming up and a head floats across. And I jumped out of my seat, literally, and I found myself tucked up like this, like on top of the seat, like that. And so I did that when Madonna appeared in the little bit. I think it was cut from the film. And that was what I based the character on. And ever since after that, the more extreme the physical stuff, the better. Has made up and made him a cartoon. Just made him completely a cartoon, which I don't think that is what they were after. I think originally it was going to be Steve Buscemi, and he couldn't do it for some reason. So certainly not what they were after. And that's what they got. It's very fun. Very fun. I think it failed spectacularly initially. It's become quite a cult movie, you know.
It's it's definitely has found some kind of an audience.
Yeah, at colleges.
Yeah, no, always a good place for those movies. While I've got you here, just I don't know if anyone's a fan of this. This is one of those great Woody Allen films. Everyone Says I Love You.
Oh yeah.
And and your character Charles Ferry, who
I wouldn't have been able to tell him his name. That's brilliant.
did you? You only worked. Well, that raises a question. I mean, how long did you work on that film? But also, the thing I love about that character is the way he's constantly invading Drew Barrymore's space. Yeah. There is just this kind of, he's on her constantly, and I love that interplay between you and Drew in that scene, and to the point where you just begin smelling her hair. Yeah. And I'm wondering, was that written? How much latitude did you have in creating that character?
Well, with Woody, the way he worked with me, I don't know how he works with other people, but with me, I got on very well with him as a director, and he would say to me, look, he'd give me the scene and say, okay, this is a good line, this will get you a laugh here, this is good, this will serve you well. Whatever you do between that and this is all yours. And so I would just make it up, and that's how all of that stuff kind of arose, and at the party and all that kind of behaviour. He just wanted invasion. He wanted these upper class people to have a little taste of what they were sort of comfortably from a distance saying was so important to them, and so I supplied it really, but it was a free for all as far as I was concerned. I worked on it for 7 weeks. I only shot for 7 days, but
oh, wow.
Woody makes his mind up when he's going to shoot.
Well, he works so quickly, but yeah, it was a different film for him being a musical. So, yeah, after a fashion, it's a musical. Yeah, well,
yeah.
Well, I guess we'll start wrapping up here. Just thinking about how long this show could go on, and they often the networks like 5 seasons. They like the syndication thing. How do you feel about being doing this show for being in for the long haul?
Well, I don't mind. I'm game for it if the scripts stay of a good standard. I'm really happy to have a go at it. When you sign your deal, you have to sign for 6.5 years. Is now the standard procedure. So if they, we don't get to choose; they get to choose. So it's they can pull the plug at any time. So it's really just about the audience and how many of them want us to stick around. I think. On anything, I'm up for it though. I'm quite enjoying myself, although I am very tired, as you can probably see.
Yeah. He just came from shooting today, so please.
This morning.
Yeah, yeah. So please give him a hand. Give Mr. Tim Roth a big hand here, guys.